Have you ever wondered what your life would look like if nothing could shake you? Not because life stopped being difficult, but because you stopped giving your peace away so easily. Imagine walking into stress, criticism, conflict, pressure, and still being rooted in yourself. Calm, clear, unbothered. That's not denial. That's discipline. That's what it means to act as if nothing bothers you. Not because you don't feel, but because you've learned to master what you feel before it masters you. We've been taught that power is loud, that strength is forceful, but true power is quiet. It's emotional self-control. It's the ability to stay composed while others unravel, to hear criticism without crumbling, to face chaos without becoming it. That kind of power isn't given, it's trained. And in this episode, we'll explore how to build it. Drawing from the timeless wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, Carl Jung, Nietzsche, and Napoleon Hill, we'll dive into 12 mental disciplines that help you stay grounded when everything else is shaking. This is not about pretending you don't care. It's about choosing how to care, when to care, and who is worthy of your attention. If you're tired of being easily triggered, emotionally drained, or constantly reacting, this episode will give you tools to take your power back, in silence, without permission, and without explanation. 1. Mastering the "nothing bothers me" mindset. What if your real strength was never in how much you fight back, but in how little you let things inside? That doesn't mean you stop feeling. It doesn't mean you pretend life doesn't hurt. But it means you stop handing every moment, every person, every inconvenience the keys to your emotional state. That's what the "nothing bothers me" mindset is about. It's not detachment from life. It's sovereignty over your mind. It's learning to observe without absorbing, to feel without drowning, to respond without losing yourself. Marcus Aurelius, a man who led an empire through war, plague, and betrayal, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That wasn't a poetic idea. It was his survival strategy. Because life will test you in ways you cannot predict. People will disappoint you. Stress will rise. Plans will fall through. But none of that has the power to control you unless you give it power. This mindset doesn't come from pretending to be emotionless. It comes from training your thoughts to serve you instead of sabotage you. That begins by separating stimulus from response. Someone criticizes you. Do you react, or do you pause, evaluate, and choose how to engage? Something delays your progress. Do you spiral into frustration, or do you adapt with clarity? That gap between what happens and how you respond is where freedom lives. And most people never claim it. Napoleon Hill said it clearly: self-discipline begins with the mastery of your thoughts. Your thoughts are not neutral. They either build your calm or destroy it. They either anchor you or send you spiraling. And without awareness, your mind becomes a servant to emotion, reactive, scattered, unsteady. But with training, it becomes your greatest asset. The "nothing bothers me" mindset is not passive. It's active discipline. It's checking your thoughts the moment they try to hijack your peace. It's reminding yourself that not everything deserves a reaction, that your energy is sacred, that your time is expensive, and that your mind is a place too valuable to be rented out to every little irritation or ego trigger. So, how do you begin? Start by noticing what gets to you, the small things, the petty things, the habitual annoyances, and instead of suppressing them, ask yourself, why does this bother me? What story am I attaching to this? Is it worth my peace? That question alone can shift your entire response. Because once you realize that your calm is not the world's responsibility, it's yours, everything changes. The goal is not to be unaffected by life, it's to remain unshaken by what isn't worth your reaction. 2. Emotional detachment is silent power. What if the most powerful thing you could do was nothing? Not out of avoidance, not out of indifference, but out of mastery. The ability to feel a wave of emotion rising, anger, sadness, defensiveness, and instead of acting from it, you observe it, you breathe through it, you wait. And then you respond from clarity, not chaos. That is emotional detachment. And it's one of the rarest, strongest forms of self-control. But let's clear something up. Detachment isn't about becoming numb. It's not apathy. It's not disconnecting from the world. It's about refusing to let the world dictate your internal state. Because once you give that power away, you become a puppet to everything outside of you. One comment ruins your day. One look shatters your confidence. One rejection collapses your focus. That's not sensitivity. That's emotional slavery. Carl Jung said it best. The ability to withdraw attention is a form of power. Think about that. Power is not always in action. Sometimes it's in restraint. The ability to not pour your energy into every provocation. To not chase every conflict. To not try to fix what was never yours to hold. That's when you move from emotional reactivity to emotional authority. And Nietzsche's words deepen this even more. He who cannot put his thoughts on ice should not enter into the heat of argument, because when you're emotionally fused to every interaction, you lose perspective, you react fast, you speak from ego, not truth. You defend, escalate, unravel, not because the situation demands it, but because you never learned to step back. Emotional detachment gives you that space. It lets you say, "This doesn't need a reaction. My peace is more valuable than this momentary satisfaction." And in that stillness, you find clarity. You find your voice, not the one fueled by impulse, but the one rooted in strength. This doesn't mean you never feel. It means you stop letting your feelings make every decision. You honor them, you hear them, but you choose your response with intention, and the more you do this, the more untouchable you become. Not because life stops throwing chaos your way, but because you stop giving chaos permission to enter. So here's your challenge. The next time something triggers you, a message, a tone, a memory, pause. Don't react, just observe. Ask, does this deserve my energy? Or is my silence the stronger move? And remember, real power doesn't shout, it doesn't chase, it simply holds its ground, quietly, completely. 3. Train your mind to pause before reacting. How many regrets in your life were born from a moment you didn't pause? One sharp word, one impulsive decision, one heated message you wish you could take back. These are the echoes of a mind that reacts before it reflects. And for most people, that moment, that tiny invisible pause between stimulus and response, feels like it doesn't even exist. But here's the truth. That pause can be trained, and when it is, it becomes one of the most powerful tools for personal transformation. In the Stoic tradition, that pause is the practice. It's where all the work begins, not in controlling life, but in controlling yourself within it. Seneca wrote, "A sword never kills anybody. It is a tool in the killer's hand." In other words, the event isn't what harms you, your reaction is. Words are tools, emotions are tools. The question is, Who's holding them? Are you wielding your emotions with awareness, or are they wielding you? In modern terms, we call it emotional intelligence, but at its core, it's about one thing: space, the space between what triggers you and how you choose to respond. And here's the truth: you are not your first impulse. Your first reaction may be fear, anger, defensiveness. That's normal. That's human. But your second thought, your chosen thought, that's who you really are. Napoleon Hill once said, "Think twice before you speak, because your words and influence will plant the seed of either success or failure." That pause, those extra seconds, they create room for better words, room for restraint, room for a decision that reflects your values, not just your ego in the moment. But how do you train the pause? You start small. When someone interrupts you, pause. When traffic delays you, pause. When you read something online that makes your blood boil, pause. It's not about suppressing what you feel. It's about holding what you feel long enough to understand it. Breathe into the feeling. Let it rise. Let it speak. And then ask, what outcome do I actually want here? And with practice, something incredible happens. Your reactions begin to shift. You stop being easily triggered. You stop making decisions you regret. You start responding with intention, with calm, with a kind of inner gravity that others can feel, even if they don't understand it. Because when you master the pause, you're no longer a slave to emotion. You're a student of it, and eventually a master. So ask yourself, where in my life do I tend to react too quickly? What would change if I trained myself to pause? Not forever, just for a breath. That breath might just save your job, your relationship, your peace of mind. Because power isn't always in motion. Sometimes it's in stillness, in silence, in choosing to wait, until your response reflects not your mood, but your strength. 4. Visualization as a tool of mental control. What if the most powerful change in your external world began with an image inside your mind? We often think of mental control as suppression, pushing thoughts away, silencing emotion, powering through discomfort. But the truth is, your mind doesn't respond well to force. It responds to direction. And the most effective way to direct it is to show it where to go. That's where visualization comes in, not as fantasy, but as mental rehearsal for the life you're building and the calm you're choosing to embody. Napoleon Hill said it clearly: "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." That quote isn't wishful thinking, it's neuroscience. The brain doesn't distinguish between what you vividly imagine and what you physically experience. So when you see yourself calm, poised and in control over and over again, the mind begins to accept that as your default. Not because the world changed, but because your internal environment did. This isn't about pretending things are easy. It's about training your nervous system to respond with composure, even when the pressure is high. Visualization helps you pre-live your responses, so when the moment comes, you don't collapse into panic. You rise into practice. You've been here before. You've already chosen your response. Think of elite athletes. They don't just train their bodies. They visualize the race, the goal, the pressure. Why? Because mental rehearsal sharpens real-world performance. The same applies to your emotional landscape. You want to be calm during conflict? Visualize yourself breathing slowly, choosing your words, walking away if needed. You want to stay grounded in chaos? Picture yourself centered while others lose themselves. The mind begins to treat these imagined scenarios as training reps, and your emotional muscle strengthens. But visualization only works when it's consistent. One-time daydreams don't rewire you. Daily practice does. So create a space, even just 5 quiet minutes a day, to visualize your best self handling your biggest challenges with strength, clarity, and calm. Make the scenes detailed. See the room, feel your breath, hear the tone of your voice. The more specific, the more powerful, and if doubt arises, as it often does, don't resist it. Acknowledge it, then continue anyway, because training your mind is not about instant belief. It's about consistent exposure, and with time, the images you once imagined become the reflexes you naturally choose. This is the true power of visualization, not just imagining success, but rehearsing resilience, not picturing a perfect life, but practicing the mindset that will carry you through any life. So ask yourself, what do I want my default reaction to be when I'm challenged, when I'm disrespected, when I'm under pressure? Then close your eyes and live it in your mind, again and again, because what the mind rehearses, the body remembers, and what the body remembers becomes who you are. 5. Letting go of what you can't control. Have you ever felt completely drained, not from doing too much, but from thinking too much about what you can't change? That's the quiet trap most people fall into. They wake up each day already in a silent war with reality, trying to predict what someone will say, trying to fix how others see them, trying to make everything, timing, people, outcomes, align exactly with their expectations. And when life doesn't cooperate, which it rarely does, they feel betrayed, disappointed, exhausted. But here's the harsh truth we rarely admit. Control is an illusion, and clinging to that illusion is one of the greatest sources of unnecessary suffering in life. Epictetus, one of the clearest voices in Stoic thought, said, "Some things are up to us, and some are not." That sentence is easy to understand and incredibly difficult to live by, because most of us have built entire emotional lives around trying to control what was never ours to hold. We try to control people's behavior by explaining ourselves again and again. We try to control the future by overthinking every possible outcome. We even try to control the past, replaying scenes in our head, wondering what we should have said, should have done, should have known. But none of that brings peace. It just deepens the chaos inside. Carl Jung's insight adds another layer to this truth. What you resist persists. And nowhere is that more obvious than in our emotional patterns. The more you fight your anxiety, the louder it becomes. The more you resist sadness, the longer it lingers. The more you cling to outcomes, the more they slip through your fingers. Because when we resist reality, we fuel it, we give it energy, and that energy turns into frustration, confusion, burnout. So what does letting go actually mean? Letting go is not passivity. It's not saying, "I don't care." It's saying, "I care enough to stop destroying my peace for things I can't change." It's shifting from control to clarity, from anxiety to alignment. It means acknowledging that some people won't understand you, and that's okay. Some situations won't go your way, and that's part of the process. Some days won't make sense, but they will pass. When you let go, you're not quitting, you're releasing, you're choosing to conserve your energy for what actually is within your control. Your attitude, your actions, your mindset, your discipline. You stop fighting the current and learn to move with it. Not because you're weak, but because you're finally wise enough to know when to surrender and when to stand firm. And that kind of surrender is powerful. It gives you clarity. It gives you presence. It brings you back to this moment, where life actually happens. Because worry lives in the future. Regret lives in the past. but power lives in now. So here's the question. What have you been holding on to that is quietly holding you back? Is it an apology you never received? A decision someone else made? A narrative you've clung to about what your life should look like by now? Whatever it is, what would it feel like to set it down? Not because it doesn't matter, but because you matter more, because your peace, your focus, your presence are worth more than the illusion of control you've been chasing. Letting go doesn't happen all at once. It's a practice, a daily act of reminding yourself, this isn't mine. I release it. I return to what is. And the more you do that, the more space you create inside. Space for joy, for clarity, for strength, for progress. Because when your hands aren't busy holding what was never yours, they're free to build what is. So the next time you feel your mind spiraling, stop, breathe, ask, is this within my control? And if it's not, give yourself permission to step back, to let it be what it is, and focus instead on how you will show up in the face of it. That is real power, not control, but choice, not certainty, but steadiness. And when you live from that place, nothing owns you. 6. Stop seeking approval. Choose yourself. How many parts of your life have you edited just to be accepted? The way you speak, the dreams you share, the risks you don't take, the truths you water down. You shape yourself not based on your values, but on what you think will make others clap. And the irony? You're doing all that work to earn approval from people who are too busy trying to earn someone else's. It's a loop, an exhausting, never-ending loop of shrinking yourself just to fit into places you were never meant to stay. But here's the truth you need to face if you ever want real peace. The need for approval will drain your power faster than any failure ever could. Because every time you make a decision based on how others will see you, you abandon a piece of yourself. And slowly, without realizing it, you become a version of you that looks alive, but feels like a ghost. Nietzsche said, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." That quote doesn't just describe ambition, it describes loneliness, the kind of solitude that comes when you start choosing yourself. Because the moment you stop conforming, stop explaining, stop begging to be liked, you lose the comfort of the crowd, but you gain something far more valuable, yourself. Napoleon Hill reinforces this with his timeless truth. You are the master of your destiny. You can influence, direct, and control your own environment. But you can't do that if you're outsourcing your worth. If your confidence rises and falls based on likes, replies, or silent approval, you're not free, you're performing. And no matter how convincing the act, deep down, you'll feel it. That ache of knowing you've made everyone else comfortable, while suffocating your own soul. So what's the alternative? Radical self-approval, not arrogance, not defiance, but the quiet decision to belong to yourself first, to stop waiting for people to believe in you before you begin, to stop needing applause before you take the stage. You choose your values, your vision, your voice, even if no one claps, even if no one notices, because you weren't put here to live someone else's version of safety. This shift is uncomfortable. You'll feel doubt. You'll wonder if you're being selfish. You'll hear echoes of old voices telling you to be nice, stay small, keep everyone happy. But that's not love. That's control. And choosing yourself isn't rejection of others. It's a return to the one person you'll never be able to escape, you. So ask yourself honestly, where in my life am I shrinking for approval? what truth have I silenced just to keep peace that isn't even real? Then ask, what would it look like to choose myself? Not someday, but now. Because when you stop asking for permission to exist fully, everything begins to shift. You walk differently, speak differently, decide differently, and slowly, the people who only loved your performance disappear. But the ones who see your truth start to arrive. That's when you realize being chosen by others was never the goal. Being chosen by you, that was the victory all along. 7. Handle criticism without losing your peace. Why does one comment from someone who doesn't even know you have the power to ruin your whole day? That's the paradox of criticism. It shouldn't matter, but somehow it does. You can receive 10 compliments and 1 critique, and guess which one your mind will replay again and again. It's not weakness, it's wiring. The brain evolved to detect threats, and in the modern world, criticism often feels like one. But here's the truth. Criticism only stings when it touches something unhealed. And the more you depend on external validation, the more vulnerable you are to external judgment. But peace doesn't come from avoiding criticism. It comes from learning how to filter it, because not all criticism is equal. Some of it is projection, some of it is jealousy, some of it is noise, and occasionally, just occasionally, it's useful. But either way, you decide what gets in. You decide what deserves attention and what deserves silence. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." That's exactly what happens with criticism. The comment is one sentence, but your mind turns it into a story, a personal attack, a reason to question everything. And before you know it, you've surrendered your peace not to a person, but to a thought you allowed to grow unchecked. Carl Jung deepened this insight when he said, "Criticism has the power to do good when it is constructive, but it can be deadly when it is not." So the challenge is not to reject all criticism, but to develop the wisdom to know the difference. Constructive criticism points you toward your blind spots. It offers refinement, not shame. Destructive criticism, on the other hand, usually says more about the person speaking than the person being spoken to. Here's the key. Respond from consciousness, not from insecurity. When someone criticizes you, take a breath. Ask, is there truth in this? If yes, use it. Grow from it. Improve. If not, let it pass through you like wind. You don't have to carry what isn't yours. But that ability takes inner work. It takes grounding yourself so deeply in your own values, your own mission, your own self-respect, that outside noise can't rattle what's been built from within. When your peace comes from performance, it vanishes with the audience. But when your peace comes from alignment, it becomes untouchable. Here's a practical shift. Next time you receive criticism, resist the urge to defend or explain. Instead, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this helping me, or is this hijacking me? If it's helpful, thank the person, even silently, and keep what serves. If it's not, smile inwardly and walk on. You are not obligated to carry opinions that were never rooted in understanding. You are not required to bleed just because someone else is wounded. And you are not responsible for the projections of people who haven't done their own healing. So ask yourself now, what criticism has been living in my mind rent-free? And what would happen if I finally released it? Because peace isn't found in avoiding judgment. It's found in owning who you are so completely that even when judgment comes, it echoes against a wall of self-knowledge and fades. 8. Keep your composure under pressure. What if the real test of your strength wasn't how loud you are in peace, but how calm you stay in chaos? Anyone can seem composed when life is predictable, when the schedule runs smoothly, when people treat you kindly, when things go as planned. But pressure, real pressure, is a mirror. It reveals what's been trained and what's been faked. It shows you whether your stillness is surface level or if it's rooted deep in discipline, clarity, and emotional maturity. Marcus Aurelius gave us one of the most powerful lines in Stoic philosophy: "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That isn't just a call to persistence, it's a shift in perception. When pressure shows up, most people flinch, react, escape, or crumble. But the Stoic, the trained mind, recognizes the obstacle as the assignment. Pressure isn't the enemy, it's the invitation to rise. And in those moments, composure becomes your most powerful asset. Because when everyone else is spiraling, the one who can pause, assess, and choose their response becomes the leader, even in silence. But this isn't easy, especially in a world that worships speed, urgency, and reaction. You'll be tempted to lash out, to rush decisions, to mirror the chaos around you. That's why mental training is essential. It's not enough to want to stay calm. You have to prepare for it. You have to practice breathing when everything inside you wants to explode. You have to rehearse clarity in the middle of noise. You have to remind yourself, in every storm, this is not the time to react. This is the time to lead. Napoleon Hill said, "Strength and growth come only through continuous effort and struggle." That struggle isn't always visible. Sometimes it's internal. It's the struggle to keep your tone steady when provoked, to hold your vision when everything is falling apart, to act strategically when every part of you wants to scream or shut down. This is not suppression, it's sovereignty. Composure doesn't mean ignoring your emotions. It means honoring them without handing them the wheel. It means giving yourself the full experience of life, stress, tension, fear, and still choosing how you will move. Not reactively, but consciously. So how do you build this kind of composure? You train small before life tests you big. You practice stillness during minor inconveniences, traffic, delays, unexpected plans. You use those moments as emotional reps. You remind yourself, if I can stay calm here, I'll be ready when the real pressure comes. And when that pressure does come, because it always will, you'll have something most people lack: inner structure. Ask yourself, what happens to me under pressure? Do I panic? Do I attack? Do I freeze? And more importantly, do I like who I become when I'm under stress? Because pressure doesn't just test your strategy, it tests your identity. And when your composure becomes stronger than your environment, that's when you stop being reactive and start becoming unstoppable. 9. Silence is the ultimate power move. When was the last time you said nothing, not because you didn't know what to say, but because you did? We live in a world addicted to noise. Everyone's talking, explaining, justifying, reacting. We speak to fill space, to ease discomfort, to prove we're right, or to avoid being forgotten. But here's the paradox. The more you talk, the more your words devalue. Power isn't found in how often you speak. It's in knowing when not to. Silence is misunderstood. People think it's weakness. They think being quiet means you've lost the argument, or that you don't have anything to offer. But the opposite is often true. Silence is not a lack of power. It's the control of power. It's having something to say and choosing not to say it, because you're no longer playing the game. You're watching it. You're learning from it. You're mastering it. Epictetus once said, Silence is safer than speech. He wasn't advising cowardice. He was teaching discernment, because words carry energy, and when you give them away too easily, when you argue every point, respond to every insult, explain yourself to everyone, you scatter your energy, you lose leverage. But silence? Silence commands attention. It creates space. It makes people wonder, what is he thinking? Why isn't she reacting? And Nietzsche deepened this insight with a darker layer of truth. He who speaks a bit of nonsense is far more innocent than he who remains silent in order to deceive. Silence isn't always virtuous. It can be used to manipulate, to withhold, to punish. But used consciously, it's transformative. It becomes a boundary, a pause, a moment of strength where others would fall into noise. Silence is a mirror. It reflects the truth more clearly than speech ever could. In silence, people reveal themselves, their insecurity, their ego, their hunger for validation. And when you don't react, when you stay still, you hold the mirror up without saying a word. So how do you use silence as a power move? You don't react to bait. You let others talk themselves into corners while you observe. You let time reveal intentions while you stay grounded. You reserve your voice for when it matters, not when your ego demands it. You speak less, but when you do speak, every word carries weight, because silence has trained your discipline. And in conflict, silence is often your sharpest blade, not because it cuts, but because it doesn't. It denies others the reaction they're trying to provoke. It protects your energy. It says, I don't owe you my peace. Ask yourself now, how often do I talk just to be heard? How often do I speak from impulse, not intention? What would it look like to let silence speak for me more often? Because the most powerful person in the room is rarely the loudest. They're the one listening, calculating, choosing, speaking when it matters, and staying silent when it doesn't. That's not weakness, that's mastery. 10. Train yourself to stay calm, no matter what. What would change in your life if your first instinct in every situation was calm? Not anxiety, not frustration, not immediate defensiveness, but stillness, a breath, a collected presence that says, I am in control of myself, even if nothing else is. This isn't about denying emotion. It's about developing the rare strength of staying grounded when everything else is pulling you in different directions. Because in today's world, calm is a superpower. And like any power, it's something you have to train. Carl Jung once wrote, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, and to stay calm, truly calm, you have to face all of you, the part that wants to yell, the part that gets defensive, the part that panics. You can't suppress those parts, but you can lead them. You can observe the chaos inside you without becoming it. That's where calm is born, not from the absence of intensity, but from the presence of awareness. Napoleon Hill captured this perfectly. Calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. And like any jewel, calmness doesn't just appear. It's shaped under pressure. It's cut and polished by difficult people, tight deadlines, unexpected news, and situations that don't go your way. Most people break under that pressure. They react, they spiral. But the few who stay calm, they rise, not because they feel less, but because they process more. So how do you begin training this calm? Start by recognizing your triggers. Notice what makes your heart race, your voice rise, your mind speed up. Don't try to stop the reaction, just notice it. That moment of awareness is everything. It's the gap between the stimulus and your response. And in that gap, you breathe, you ground, you ask, is this worth disturbing my peace? Then, expand your tolerance. Put yourself in low-stakes stress, a cold shower, a hard workout, public speaking, and practice staying calm. Practice breathing through it. You're not just building endurance, you're building a new default, a nervous system that doesn't collapse every time the world pushes against you. You'll mess up, you'll snap sometimes, but the more you return to calm, the stronger that muscle gets. And eventually, what once triggered you no longer owns you. You're not avoiding life, you're mastering it, from the inside out. And let's be clear, staying calm doesn't mean being passive. It means being present. It means keeping your clarity when others lose theirs. It means seeing clearly while others react blindly. And that kind of leadership, internal and external, only comes from training. So ask yourself, what would my life look like if I stayed calm no matter what? Who would I become if I stopped letting every challenge, every opinion, every outcome hijack my peace? Because when you stop giving your calm away to chaos, you don't just survive, you lead. You become the stable center in a spinning world. And that kind of calm doesn't just protect your peace, it changes the room. It changes your path. 11. Move in silence. Let results speak. How much energy have you wasted announcing your plans, proving your intentions, or trying to convince people you're serious? There's a deep human need to be seen, to be acknowledged, and we often mistake that for a need to be loud. We tell the world our goals, expecting motivation to come from the validation we receive. But here's the truth most people won't admit. The more you talk about what you're going to do, the less you usually do it. Because talking can create the illusion of progress. It can trick your brain into feeling like something's already been accomplished, when all you've really done is performed the idea. Seneca said, "Let deeds match words." That's the standard. Not to be admired for what you intend, but for what you finish, because words are easy, action is costly, it demands focus, repetition, solitude, setbacks. And that's why most people talk more than they move. Because moving in silence requires discipline. It requires you to build in the dark, with no audience clapping, no one watching, and nothing but your own inner compass keeping you going. Napoleon Hill sharpened this wisdom when he wrote, "Tell the world what you intend to do, but first show it. The order matters. Let the proof precede the promise. Let your results walk into the room before you do." Because when you achieve in silence, you protect your process from premature judgment, comparison, and interference. You keep the energy focused where it belongs, on the doing, not the declaring. But let's be clear, moving in silence is not secrecy. It's not hiding. It's intentional discretion. You don't withhold out of fear, you withhold out of focus. You give yourself space to build before the world rushes in with opinions. You give your goals a sacred container where they can grow strong before being exposed to the noise. Think about it. How many times have you shared a dream too early and then lost momentum? How many times have you opened up about your plans to the wrong people, and instead of encouragement, you got doubt, envy, or subtle sabotage? You don't owe the world a preview. You owe yourself the silence to become, and when the results come, because they will, you won't need to explain. You won't need to convince anyone you've changed. The evidence will be undeniable. The shift will be visible. The silence will have done the talking for you. So ask yourself, what am I over-explaining right now? What would happen if I stopped announcing and just started doing? Because your power isn't in your promises, it's in your proof. And when you live like that, quietly, intentionally, relentlessly, you don't just gain results, you earn respect. 12. Indifference is not apathy, it's prioritization. What if not caring about everything is exactly what makes space for the things that truly matter? We often confuse indifference with coldness, with emotional detachment, disconnection, or apathy, but true indifference, in its highest form, is none of those things. It's not about feeling less. It's about feeling wisely. It's not about shutting down your heart. It's about learning how to direct it, protect it, and offer it only to what truly deserves it. Marcus Aurelius, facing the weight of empire and mortality, reminded himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That's not a morbid statement. It's a filter, one that clears the noise and sharpens the essential. When you live with that awareness, you stop wasting time on things that don't matter. Gossip doesn't stick. Petty drama loses its grip. Opinions lose their power. You become selective, not because you're detached, but because you finally understand the value of your attention. And that's what real indifference is. It's not a shutdown of emotion. It's a disciplined refusal to let emotion be wasted. It's prioritization, energy management, the quiet inner strength that says, "Not everything gets access to me." Because when you try to care about everything, when you're emotionally involved in every outcome, every comment, every rejection, you burn out, you become reactive, scattered, exhausted. Nietzsche gives us a deeper grounding. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. That why, your purpose, your principle, your deep internal compass, is what allows you to be indifferent to the noise around you. It's not that you don't care, it's that you care too deeply about what really matters to be distracted by what doesn't. But reaching this place of clarity isn't automatic. It's trained. You build it by asking, in every situation, does this deserve my reaction? Is this helping me grow, or is it pulling me off course? And if the answer is no, you let it go, without guilt, without drama, without needing to justify your decision. And here's the paradox. The more you refine what you give your energy to, the more alive you feel. The less you chase validation, the more grounded you become. The less you explain yourself, the more powerful your presence becomes. So don't confuse being indifferent with being disconnected. The strongest people aren't the ones who shut the world out. They're the ones who choose where their world begins and ends, who enters, what stays, what passes. Ask yourself now, where in my life am I wasting emotional energy? What would change if I stopped giving my peace to people, problems, and possibilities that don't actually serve my mission? Because when you stop caring about the wrong things, you finally have space to give your best to the right ones. That's not apathy. That's evolution. So now you know, acting as if nothing bothers you isn't about faking strength. It's about becoming someone who doesn't hand their peace over so easily. It's about transforming your inner world so deeply that the outer world can't shake you. Not because life gets easier, but because you get clearer, calmer, more intentional. Every principle in this episode, from letting go of control to mastering silence, from choosing yourself to training your calm, is a piece of the same puzzle: emotional sovereignty, the ability to stay grounded while the world spins, the discipline to protect your energy like it's gold, the awareness to know what deserves your reaction and what doesn't. Because in the end, power doesn't always look like domination. Sometimes it looks like restraint. Strength isn't always found in how hard you hit back. It's found in how rarely you need to. When you live with that kind of composure, that kind of clarity, people feel it. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to prove anything. Your energy speaks before you do. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, Jung, Nietzsche, Napoleon Hill. They all point to the same truth in different ways. that the highest level of power is self-possession, knowing who you are, what you value, and how to protect it, even in chaos. So the next time you're tested, when someone criticizes you, when plans fall apart, when your emotions flare, remember this episode. Pause, breathe, and ask, who do I want to be in this moment? Who do I refuse to become again? Let your actions come from power, not panic, from alignment, not ego, from your future self, the one who no longer needs to explain, react, or rush. If this episode resonated with you, if it gave you tools, questions, or clarity, take a second to subscribe, share it with someone who's walking through their own storm, and leave a comment with the lesson that hit you hardest. And most of all, protect your peace, speak less, observe more, move with calm, because your stillness, that's your strength.